Answer is to tax these companies and fund workforce development, upskilling courses, and create the shared prosperity that we need, the pathways to the jobs of the future, but not to regulate them to the point that they simply go to other places and then this change happens to us.
The number one thing we have to do is make sure that AI is a tool for workers and not a replacement of workers. And we absolutely need to own part of it. The people of California need to have a tax or a fee on every calculation. And we'll use that to protect workers. We'll use that to retrain workers.
The real blue-collar jobs that are coming from the AI revolution, they're not happening in California. They're going to Texas and Arizona. Semiconductor manufacturing, we can get that back by removing regulations. And secondly, our school system is not educating our kids to be able to thrive in this world of AI.
AI is a policy choice. We get to decide as Californians whether we want these technologies to work for us and to help us, or whether we want to stand by and let them gut our economy. We have to decide, do we want AI to work for all of us? And I think when AI uses what people have done, what workers have done, workers should be compensated for those inputs.
One of the most contentious topics tonight was health care. Candidates were asked about providing care to undocumented immigrants in the state.
I believe in that healthcare is a right, not a privilege, that it should be universal, affordable, and high quality.
When are we going to draw the line at any other crime? It's illegal. They entered the country illegally. We're not going to incentivize them to come here to take more of the resources that regular Californians aren't getting. The ones that are struggling here, that are here legally, they're not getting that. They're not getting free education. They're not getting free medical. They're not getting free food. They're not getting all of those things that the illegal ones are getting.
Immigrants, whether documented or not, work hard. They pay taxes, and sometimes they get injured on the job or their children get sick. It would be foolish to tell a family that they don't have access to the pediatrician or the family doc, or not be able to use the community health center where it wouldn't cost us so much to give them access to good health care.
So there's a lot to unpack here. Let's start with the fact that they were asked questions about AI and how do we regulate it. And the Dems said, yeah, we need to regulate it. We need to increase taxes, and that would help enhance AI and make it good for everybody. And we need to protect the workers. That's the Democrats' policy. More regulation. Well, part of what's running California in the ground is too much regulation. Okay? And the other part is overpromising those illegals in other sectors, just overpromising. So now you are overtaxing. You already tax businesses to the max. What they need to be doing is being honest with the workers and saying, you need to start going to schools, trade schools or colleges in tech and learning these systems in AI, because that's the future jobs. Somebody's going to have to learn AI because you're still going to have to work with AI, right? But they are coming to take your average Joe jobs. And even in corporation, I'm in real estate, AI is moving in that sector. So they could shrink, the brokers could shrink the capacity of needing so many agents. AI is going to fundamentally do that. They just need brokers who could speak and get in front of clients and close deals. That's what they're focusing on, while AI pushes the marketplace as far as pushing the advertising, right? But at the end of the day, they need engineers and tech guys to come in and implement the AI, right? So what they're not telling you is taxing the rich doesn't help bringing those workers. Making programs where you got people who are focused on learning AI does. But they're not going to do that because, hell, they don't even plan on doing what the money they say they're going to do, because that money that they're going to get that's extra from taxing is going to fund their campaigns and keep them afloat and keep them in power in California. That's how all this is done. That's why if you just look at how high taxes are in California and New York, already there's nothing that gets done. The schools are failing. bridges, roads are failing, high crime, high taxes. They already don't do nothing with it. Homelessness, the list goes on and on. So their plan is to combat AI is more regulation. They're already highly regulated. The Republican chimed in. He said one thing: we need to remove regulation. That means remove these regulations. See, Republicans are always thinking business because what works good for the business works good for the worker. Democrats are always on a gotcha where, well, the business owner or the billionaire is crippling us. So we know better. We're the government. We're going to overtax him. That is our whole blueprint. Just tax the people who create the jobs, right? And therefore, everything will work out just lovely. And don't even look at what we did with this tax money. Don't even look at that. Or don't even go back and study the results of our plans. Please don't do that. So that's it in a nutshell. Then the next thing they discussed was they were asked whether health care was a right for illegal citizens or not. Well, Democrats keep claiming because they want to be for everybody. There's no, we should give health care. It should be a legal right to everyone. Everyone's a citizen of California. Well, that's part of why your state is like billions of dollars in debt. You can't afford everyone. That's part of it. And they say it's all right. Republicans, they say cut off the illegal immigrants and stop incentivizing them to come into the country because you give them free health care, free this, free that. That's why they're coming. Now, in the bigger picture, the United States need to get out of the Eastern Hemisphere, right? These East and West Coast states need to build refineries, right? Start pumping oil, right? Then the United States wouldn't have to be in the Middle East regulating oil and gas because we wouldn't need to buy oil from them no more. We could buy oil from the southern states and East and West Coast states. But right now, it's cheaper to buy oil from the Middle East than it is from the southern states because of politics, right? Once we get our house in order, we could do better economic deals with all of the Americas, all the American countries from Venezuela, Brazil on down. Then that would eliminate the need for mass migration into the United States because their economies would be enriched and they would have jobs. And that's how it should be done. Real quick, I want to throw it back to CNN and let's see what they're talking about because they are absolutely humiliating the Democrats on their performance tonight. Let's hear what they had to say.
As a Californian yourself, what did you make of how they differentiated themselves tonight in this crowded field?
Well, look, I mean, I thought that Tom Steyer, his experience showed. He's run for president. They tried to jump on him a couple times. He's a conviction politician. And if you like, strong left-wing politics, he was your guy. The problem we have in California is we produce more billionaires than any nation or state, and we resent the hell out of them. And so I'm not sure how many people are going to stick with him because he's a billionaire. I thought Matt Mahan showed a breath of fresh air. He's a young guy. He's new to politics. He was pragmatic. But I think Becerra didn't do himself much good. I think he looked pretty squirrely on the Medicare for All issue. He was a little bit squirrely on some other stuff. He's been the rising star because of Swalwell getting out. I don't think he helped himself tonight.
There were a couple of dynamics. I mean, there's the Trump of it all, which we'll definitely get to. But for the Democrats, the five of them on the stage, I do think that in a state like California, you've got a lot of progressives. They're very liberal. But there's definitely a sense that they know people want some change. They know that Californians think things are not going so swimmingly in the state. Something's got to give.
Yeah, absolutely. Prices are high there. They each had to say something about the previous governor. You also have a situation where I think a lot of Democrats don't feel like this is the ideal ticket, that you don't have people on the stage that people are in love with.
Right.
Eric Swalwell dropped out of the race because he had sexual assault allegations against him. There are some major changes that need to happen within the Democratic Party. It's a moment of reckoning for the Democratic Party in California. But I do think that overall issues like the cost of living, affordability, healthcare, all of these things are still things that people care about in California, and there needs to be major change. And it's not just policies because of the president and the war. It is policies because the governor will be likely be on the presidential ballot in 2028. And so this is also a referendum on him. Brad.
I think you're right, Judge, about that's a California good Democrats do have to stare it in the face what has been happening inside the California Democratic Party that's led to the affordability challenges. Democrats all across the country this year have decided to try to make the election about affordability, but the most Democratic state in the country is the most unaffordable state. That's why 1.23 million people have moved out of the state and moved into places like Nashville and Texas. And so, I only heard Matt Mahan tonight talk about affordability in a real pragmatic way of what he could do about it. He talked about eliminating the CEQA process, which is an environmental review process that makes infrastructure construction impossible. He talked a little bit about the tax problem, about how California is one of the highest tax states. I thought Katie Porter might have had a lane to do that tonight, but I didn't see it from her.
Well, let me play what she said about the billionaire tax. It's been so controversial in California. Listen.
This tax isn't going to fundamentally change California's economy in the way that young people and the working people of California need. It's a one-time tax, but we don't have one-time revenue.
I want to touch on something they just said there. So the CNN co-host just said, the truth is this is not the ideal ticket. You got people caught up in scandals left and right. And they keep saying they don't address affordability, cost of living, and healthcare, which, every 3 or 4 years, Democrats has their topics they try to stay on point. Well, they are hitting on some topics that are kind of universal truths to everybody, Democrat and Republican. Cost of living, affordability, and health care. Well, that's easy. Stop bringing in so many illegals into your state. Stop making people who want a job have to compete with other people who don't belong in there. And you hear them say, well, these illegals pay taxes. They don't pay taxes. They pay a sales tax when they buy something, but they're not paying into the IRS. They're not getting a 1099, a W-2. So stop saying they pay taxes. The other thing is, most of them are, when they make their money, they're taking it back home because it's worth 3, 4, 5, 10 times the amount it is back home than spending it here in the U.S. They'll keep what they need here to survive. There'll be like 8 to 10 people, I'm not gonna say Mexicans, but illegals in an apartment, and they'll spend the bare minimum they need to survive, and about 80% of that is being mailed off, shipped back to their homeland, where their family can live good and eventually set up businesses there. And when they get done working in 5, 10 years in the U.S., they'll move back home to retire. And then this whole thing of cost of living, affordability, and healthcare, they're already the highest tax state. You're going to tax billionaires even more money. Who's going to create the jobs? Like, if it's all about, well, we don't need businesses, well, then good. Everybody's an entrepreneur. We're all on an equal playing field. As a conservative, look, I'm all favor of that. We're all on an equal playing field. Who needs businesses? Let's all just go be all we could be. But no, there's businesses that are created and they offer jobs, good or bad, right? But you're going to tax these businesses. Okay, you're going to tax them. Then you're going to demand that they pay the workers more money right after taxing them. So how are they going to stay in business? We know how they're going to do it. By making your state unaffordable. By making it so much money to buy a house. Hold on. Sorry. All right, mic check, mic check. They're gonna make it so much money. Mic check, mic check. It's gonna cost so much money to buy a house now. So much money to afford groceries. Why? Because who is in control of groceries in a house? These fluky left-wing retards think the government is control of the grocery store prices, in control of your house. This is a capitalist country. The government is not in control of those things because those people in Congress are not working those jobs, so they can't be control of it, right? So if the government is not in control of the real estate market and of groceries, who is? That means a business is. Okay, so now you want to tax the business more. You already taxed them to death. Tax them more and demand in a state like California, hey, you got to pay your average worker $30, $40 an hour minimum wage. Okay. So where's he going to make a profit? Well, he's just going to go along to get along because every 3-4 years when there's election season, y'all do this to them. They just increase the price of the services and goods by 5-10%. So now your average home is $1 million. You right? And price of gas is like $8 a gallon because y'all won't build refineries on the East and West Coast. Instead, y'all go all the way to the Middle East to buy oil, right? So there's your affordability problem staring at you in the face. Let's get into this.
Support the billionaire tax, which actually maybe many Californians do. I think Katie Porter is betting that some Californians, they want a progressive tax system, but they think that this is like a 2x4 hitting their sort of tax-paying population over the head.
I live in Miami, and I can tell you almost every week right now there is some California billionaire who comes out as having broken a real estate record for buying a house in Miami that cost $200 million because they are all fleeing the state before a certain deadline, a year deadline, and establishing homesteads in Florida. So that's not helping the California economy. There are so many industries that have left California. The movie industry, which is so symbolic of California, most of the productions are right now happening overseas or in other states like New Mexico. It's happening in Canada. It's cheaper to fly people and film a movie in Scotland than it is to do so in California. So they are having very big issues. I think out of all of those people on the stage, somebody needed to stand out. That did not happen. I cannot believe I sat through 2 hours of them bickering instead of drinking margaritas at La Palapa tonight on Cinco de Mayo. I do think, that...
Sorry, we couldn't provide the margaritas.
These things are not mutually exclusive.
We definitely should have had some margaritas on set.
Listen, Tom Steyer's a progressive, and even though he's taken all the money from the coal companies, as Katie Porter keeps saying, he's now an environmentalist and all of that. So I guess you like him. I have a hard time thinking that a state that is 40% Latino, that is pissed off at billionaires, that thinks they're not paying their fair share, is going to vote for Tom Steyer. It's obvious to me that Javier Becerra has inherited the Swalwell vote, that he's on the ascent, and that's why he was being hit on like a piñata, to go back to my Cinco de Mayo theme tonight by everybody.
Let's talk about the two Republicans who are on the stage. Steve Hilton, a recent California transplant from the UK, and Chad Bianco, who's a sheriff. Let me just show you the polls, because I think that to understand where we are here, Steve Hilton is sort of nominally at the top of this pack, to put it mildly. But this is all within the margin of error. We don't really know where this is going right now. But Hilton has the Trump endorsement.
Yeah.
He was asked about whether or not he would support mass deportations. Didn't want to say. So how do you leverage a Trump endorsement to a victory in a state like California where Trump is so unpopular?
Yeah, it's a difficult puzzle to solve. Although I have to say for Hilton, I didn't know much about him before I started following this campaign. I interviewed him yesterday on my radio show. He's quite articulate about asking the right questions, which is this. If the state is failed, if the education system has failed, if it's an affordability crisis, if we're only one of 5 states where people are actually leaving instead of going into, if you have all these problems, is it a good idea to have one-party rule for so long? And Hilton, I think, has articulated that. I asked him yesterday, is it possible for a Republican to get elected governor of California? He has a way to lay out the math that shows, yes, you could attract independents and even some disaffected Democrats who are sort of fed up with the fact that they live in a state that's beautiful and has all these things going for it, but has been so mismanaged that people hate living here so much that they're fleeing.
And that's the crux of a nutshell. Scott Jennings is outlining for you the problem, what I've been saying with California. It's mismanaged. It's mismanaged. And their only thing is to say, Republican, white people, racist, we're here for everybody, including illegals, right? And just raise taxes on rich, because those are the wealth, right? Their whole scheme is, we're going to take wealth from the rich and give it back to y'all. They're taking wealth from the rich and putting it in their campaign funds. That is all they're doing, folks. And you guys eat it up and keep voting for them. Anna Navarre in the red, she said something, she said California is not going to vote for a billionaire because billionaires already don't pay their fair share of taxes. I challenge any of you to do a study on what group pays the majority of the taxes in our country. It's mostly paid by billionaires. And do a study and see what states pay the highest taxes. California is up there as number 1 or number 2. So now she's saying, well, they're not going to vote for this billionaire because they're not paying their fair share. It's a complete bullshit thing to say. They will tell you what you want to hear instead of giving you the facts. You have a broken leg, but I'm going to tell you, you know what? Here's a sucker, right? Let me pet you in the head. But you're going to be okay. But I'm not going to bandage you, fix you, tell you the operation that needs to be done to fix the leg. I'm going to send you out the door. But I'm going to tell you, look, suck on that sucker and just have good thoughts while you're sucking on it. You'll be okay. Nah, that's the fix for Democrats. Their policy is just to keep policy that, hey, it's just a race between us and Republicans, so they're bad guys, we're good guys. That's all there is to see here, folks, right? And be more loud, more dramatic with it. That's it. They like that with Jasmine Crockett, but she was too loud, too ghetto with it. And they realized, okay, that might be a little extreme, right? But they definitely like any group of people that's going to be in the street causing hell. They love them kind of people. So, you know what, guys? That's going to be it for this video. This is the Unpopular Opinion Show. I was your host, The Liberal Nightmare. Go ahead and give me a subscribe if you haven't done so already. And hit that notification bell so you can get notified